This child probably was reared in an environment full of distortion. The mother had distortion, the father had distortion, so she had deception all around her. And she is very confused. And she doesn't have the ability, because she wasn't raised in truth, to make that kind of decision about who she is. She's confused about who she is.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Tough Topic. My name is Brittany. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. This story of Jodi Hildebrandt is to shed light on so many things that have happened and are happening at the hands of the Mormon faith and powerful names that brainwashed victims into thinking that there's nowhere else to turn. I've read and studied so many different stories that truly sadden me, and I was shocked at how many people are falling victim to these so-called leaders. Many of you know Jodi Hildebrandt from the highly publicized crime from 8 passengers, Ruby Franke, being known as her business partner and co-founded Connections Classroom, which offers online support groups for people who need mental and emotional support. The irony, right? Ruby and Jodi both had a YouTube channel where you could get free coaching and tools for yourself or your family. That channel was shut down along with 8 passengers. The 54-year-old is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Jodi has a degree in counseling psychology and specializes in the treatment of addiction, relationship issues, anxiety, trauma, depression, and everything else her victims will now experience because of her awful, inhumane therapeutic techniques that are very common in the Mormon culture. If you are a Christian and a Mormon, it's very possible that you have at some point been fed a host of lies and brainwashing to make you believe if you don't act a certain way or have behaviors that may differ from your neighbor, you're not going to meet the king in the afterlife. On February 20th, both Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke were sentenced to 1 to 15-year terms in prison, with a minimum of 4 years and a maximum of 60 years. Their crimes include aggravated CA. Both Jodi and Ruby Franke are eligible for parole after just 4 years. The determining factor would be up to the parole board. I don't feel like I need to go into deep detail about why she was convicted because it would be redundant at this point. But just know the prosecution thinks that Jodi should serve more time than Ruby. The claim Jodi was the mastermind and had the ideas as to how Ruby should punish her children. Although the victims were Ruby's own children, Jodi played a bigger role in the decision making as many turned to Jodi for all the answers. Sadly, Ruby Franke's children were not Jodi's only victims. Jessie Hildebrandt, the niece of Jodi, has weighed in on her aunt's arrest, charges, and her own tragic story with Jodi. And it's so sad, disturbing, and everything in between. Jessie, who spoke openly on Mormon Stories podcast, shared that Aunt Jodi was the most convincing person there was. The list of things that her aunt made her do includes sleeping on a balcony in the wintertime, forced to run up mountains in the snow, food withheld, and using the bathroom with the door open. And that's not the half of it, but I'm just trying to keep things clean here. They state that a lot of these things were punishment for doing anything against her, including speaking to outsiders. Unfortunately, their parents knew about these punishments, but trusted Jodi. Fortunately for Jessie, she was able to escape. Another victim you may be familiar with since the sentencing is Adam Steve. Adam spoke openly on multiple platforms on just how dangerous the LDS is and how he was a victim of BSA, which is Boy Scouts of America, and he was a victim of Jodi Hildebrandt. A brief history on the BSA and the LDS, because I know some of you may be confused on how the two programs are affiliated. Boy Scouts of America had a direct affiliation with the Mormon Church and ended their partnership in 2019, which came after a slew of lawsuits and SA allegations and bankruptcy. The church felt like BSA's values did not align with theirs and cut ties. However, I feel like there's no value to the LDS after all of the allegations that came out. Adam used to be a whistleblower in his young years in the BSA and eventually raised his own children in the church, and they were a part of the BSA as well. He shares that he was hurt in BSA as well as his kids. The bishop of the church set him up with Jodi for counseling and therapy for the trauma that he's endured. Sadly, everything he told Jodi in confidence about his past addictions were used against him and ruined his family. Jodi told his wife what he was doing, creating an unsafe space for him to be around, and eventually brainwashed his wife into thinking that he was hurting his own children. 15 years ago, Adam attempted to go up against Jodi in court with 14 pages of evidence, and the case was dropped. But fortunately, Adam was able to have Jodi's license stripped, and she will no longer be able to serve as a counselor. Another victim was Brian Tibbetts, who you may also see on Mormon Stories. His story was very similar to Adam's. But in conclusion, Jodi was just corrupt. She was dangerous, vile. But the scary part is, there's more of Jodi Hildebrandt. Not only in the Mormon church, but in many religious cults. If you are being treated in a way that has sinister baggage from someone who holds power, then run as fast as you can. Tell someone, speak up, and end this culture.